Man, the internet's been on fire ever since this wild back and forth exploded between Rick Ross and DC Young Fly. And nobody saw this one coming. This wasn't rap beef, this wasn't a music rivalry. It all started with a simple joke, a regular comedy moment that turned into a full-blown clash between one of hip-hop's biggest moguls and one of the funniest names in comedy. DC Young Fly was on stage doing what he does best, roasting, flaming, and having the crowd losing it. But this time, when he aimed those jokes at Rick Ross, it hit a little different.
And did a podcast. A white podcast. You sat your for almost 2 hours.
And didn't leave.
And you talk. And the white folk asked you, was you a professional officer?
Yeah.
We would have never asked you that, nigga. We got respect for you.
Right.
And you sat right there and you answered that question so eloquently, like it wasn't even disrespectful. And then I get to sit back and watch that. And what's the difference between them and us?
Okay.
Now I feel disrespect.
Right.
Don't do us like that.
DC started off light, clowning Ross for always posting animals on his ranch, the buffaloes, the cows, the horses. DC joked that every time he sees Ross, he's got a new pet, saying, "That boy don't live in Georgia no more, he live in Jurassic Park." The crowd went crazy. Phones came out. The clip flooded social media within seconds. But DC didn't stop there. He took playful shots at Ross' weight loss, the luxury lifestyle jokes, and all the talk about mansions, cars, and private planes. DC said Ross looked like he gave up lemon pepper wings, but still had the energy of eating them every single day. And as usual, DC wasn't coming from a mean place, it was comedy. He roasts everybody. That's his brand. But Rick Ross didn't take it as a joke. Instead of laughing it off or reposting it with some smooth boss energy, Ross clapped back, and he clapped back hard. Out of nowhere, he dropped a video on Instagram, calling DC a little clown trying to disrespect a mogul, saying DC needed to learn his level. Ross even said, "You can't joke about greatness when you're still trying to reach it." That had everybody going, whoa. Ross really mad? See, Ross carries that image, the biggest boss, moving like royalty. He doesn't like being played with. So to him, DC's jokes weren't funny, they were disrespect. Ross immediately started flexing his mansion, his Maybachs, his jewelry, his cars, even his animals. Every day it was something new, basically saying, "This is boss life, not comedy club peanuts."
Since he walked off on
Man, we were just talking to Angie Martinez about that yesterday. We in Atlanta, so we run into him all the time.
Yeah.
Car shows. They ain't never been no hard feeling.
Yeah.
This ain't no hard feeling.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, first of all, I don't give.
Yeah. I get it.
But I give a cause
Try to make
you as a person.
Yeah.
We the type of people that will never bring up nothing that we feel like that can be diminished to your career or anything, nigga, cause we some real niggas.
Yeah.
The moment you leave our show,
That's when the internet flipped. Fans started choosing sides. Some said DC should have left Ross alone. Others said Ross was being way too sensitive over a harmless joke. And that's when everything really took off, because DC Young Fly saw those reactions and instead of backing down, he snapped. He wasn't having it at all. He went straight online and checked Ross immediately. This wasn't just a comedian roasting a rapper anymore. This turned into two big personalities crashing into each other, both proud, both loud, and neither willing to let it slide. When DC responded, he came with that same classic energy, funny, but real. He posted a video saying Ross was acting too emotional for someone who calls himself a boss. DC said, "You can rap about being the biggest boss, but you can't take the smallest joke." That line went viral instantly. People were laughing, reposting, stitching the video, and calling Ross Rick sensitive. DC kept going. He said Ross been clowning people for years in his music, bragging about wins, talking down on competition, flexing on everybody. But the second a comedian flips it back on him, now he ready for war. DC said, "If you really the boss you say you are, you should be able to laugh. You out here mad at a punchline." What made it blow up even more is that DC wasn't just joking, he was speaking facts. Ross always presents himself as the calm, unbothered mogul, the guy who never lets internet noise get to him. But this time, he reacted fast, too fast. And fans peeped it immediately. Ross was truly bothered. He felt like DC crossed a line. Ross jumped right back on Instagram, calling DC an opportunity seeker, saying comedians only bring him up for clout because his name brings attention. He said he's been dealing with little people his whole life and DC was nothing but noise. That's when the fanbase really split. Some said Ross had a point. Others said he was pressed. DC fired back again, calling Ross out for always showing his ranch, saying Ross acts like his animals sign his checks. He told Ross, "I ain't scared of no buffalo breeder." The internet went crazy. Memes everywhere. People photoshopping Ross next to cows, DC next to microphones, everybody clowning. But behind all the jokes, the tension was real. Because Ross didn't let it go. He started dropping subliminals every single day. Cars, cash, poolside clips, long captions about levels, success, and staying above clowns. Everybody knew exactly who Ross was talking about. And here's the twist. Ross already has a history of getting heated when people joke about him. Remember that interview he walked out of over a Wingstop joke? Or when he blocked people over those old CEO rumors? Ross doesn't like being teased. He sees himself as royalty, and DC tapped straight into that king energy. At this point, this wasn't a small misunderstanding anymore. This was pride versus pride. Ego versus ego. A comedian who's not afraid to clown anybody versus a rapper who's not used to being joked on. Ross wasn't done. DC wasn't backing down. And fans could tell right away this beef wasn't dying anytime soon. Then things got real when both sides started going a little below the surface. Ross went online and said, "Watch how he talk, bosses don't play about their name." People instantly felt like Ross had just taken it to a whole different level. DC came right back with another video saying Ross was acting like he wanted smoke, but really just wanted attention. DC told him, "If you that rich and that powerful like you say, why you arguing with a comedian? You supposed to be chilling on 200 acres.
That line exploded online because people realized DC wasn't just joking anymore, he was calling out Ross' insecurity. Ross then posted something wild, a gym video where he said, "Little man energy can't move big mountains." Fans were like, "Bro, are you really lifting weights to respond to a comedian?" This back and forth turned into the internet's favorite show for days. Every blog posted it. Every podcast covered it. Even other comedians started chiming in, Chico Bean, Carlos Miller, and even a few rappers, started throwing in their opinions, saying Ross was taking things way too serious. But not everybody was laughing. Some people felt DC needed to fall back because Ross is still a powerful businessman with real connections. Others said DC had every right to stand his ground because Ross was the one who escalated it. Even industry insiders started saying the energy around Ross shifted, like he felt DC disrespected the image he spent years carefully building. Ross had been showing off his mansions, cars, land, and business wins, and DC turned all of that into punchlines. That bruised the ego. And once ego gets involved, logic disappears. That's when beef gets dangerous, not physically, but publicly. Because reputation matters. Ross doesn't like losing. DC doesn't like backing down. And social media thrives on chaos. Then something unexpected happened. DC said he'd gladly roast Ross again on stage if Ross kept talking. Ross fired back and told him to perform somewhere safe. Fans were like, "Oh nah, this turning into something else." That one exchange showed this wasn't jokes anymore. It became a straight-up ego war between two big personalities who refused to be the one to look weak. At this point, what started as a joke turned into a lesson about pride, image, and control. Rick Ross built his brand around being untouchable, the biggest boss. To him, DC's jokes weren't just jokes. They were cracks in an image he polished for years. He's a mogul, a franchise, a brand, and brands don't like getting clowned. DC, on the other hand, is built for jokes. His whole world is roasting people, and he does it from love, not malice. But when Ross fired back, it woke up DC's competitive side. He wasn't about to let a rapper push him out of doing what he does best. This showdown became the perfect example of what happens when comedy meets rap ego. One side sees it as harmless fun. The other sees it as disrespect. And social media turns the whole situation into gasoline on a fire. Right now, fans are watching every move, every post, every caption, every interview. Everybody wondering who's going to speak next. Is Ross going to drop another subliminal? Is DC going to roast him again on stage? Is somebody going to step in and cool things down? Nobody knows. But one thing is clear, this beef ain't fake. It ain't staged. It's two grown men with massive fan bases and even bigger pride accidentally stepping into a feud neither one expected. Rick Ross wants respect. DC Young Fly wants his humor respected. Two different worlds, one major collision. And the internet is loving every minute of it. And that's where things stand right now. A joke that went 1 inch too far. Pride that snapped 1 second too fast. And two heavy personalities who refused to blink first. What started as comedy turned into competition. What started as laughs turned into lines being drawn. And what began on a stage is now playing out in front of the entire world. And the craziest part? Nobody expected this matchup, not hip-hop, not comedy, nobody. On one side, Rick Ross, a self-made mogul who built everything from the ground up. Mansions, acres, animals, cars, an empire. A man used to being praised, respected, admired. A man who hates being the punchline. And on the other side, DC Young Fly, young, raw, fearless, sharp with the jokes but real at heart. A comedian who built his career clowning anybody and everybody, no matter how big their name is. So when Ross tried to check him, DC did what DC always does, he pushed back hard. Now the whole world is watching to see who makes the next move. Will Ross double down with another boss speech? Will DC roast him even harder on stage? Or will somebody step in and shut this whole thing down? Because let's be honest, this ain't the type of beef where fists get thrown or diss tracks get dropped. This is a beef about pride, image, and ego. And that kind of beef can last longer than a punch. That kind of beef burns slow. One thing's for sure, this moment exposed something real. It showed how sensitive the rap world can be to jokes. It showed how comedy doesn't bow down for anybody. It showed that even a man with millions in mansions can still feel attacked by the wrong punchline. And it showed that a comedian with nothing but a mic can still shake the entire internet without breaking a sweat.